My name is Buddy Teaster, President and CEO of Souls for Souls and host of the Repurpose podcast. Each episode offers candid conversations with business leaders and entrepreneurs who share the ups and downs, wins and challenges they faced along the way, and how they learned to overcome them. These are real stories of real people going from tailspin to tailwind, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Sometimes we get to do these podcasts and they are great conversations, and sometimes they capture something really special. And that happened with this. This is a live recording from a fundraising breakfast we did around Repurpose here in Nashville for Souls for Souls. And we had two incredible guests. Hal Cato is the CEO of the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, and Michael Burcham is an executive partner at Shore Capital. These two men have had an incredible influence on Nashville, one from the for-profit, one from the not-profit side. They've both been in each other's lanes. They're also married, and this is the first time we've ever done that conversation together. So we get an incredible look behind the scenes at what they think about what's going on in Nashville, how to be a leader, how to stay in your lane, when to get out of your lane, and some really personal reflections on what it means to talk about those things over the dinner table. This is an amazing conversation, and I cannot wait for you to listen. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here, braving the rain, which we need, but still made the short commute from the parking garage here a little messy. So thanks for being here. And I just want to take a moment that we have this amazing view behind us that didn't look like this a few years ago. And a lot of what we see here, these two guys had a role in making happen. So we're really lucky to have them here. And one of the things that I'm excited about is this is the first time they ever sat down and talked together in front of a crowd. So this is a moment in Nashville history that we're going to remember. And so I want to start with that. You guys have had such an impact on this city. How come you've not sat down and talked about that in front of a crowd before?
It's interesting. Maybe we're a little bit more interesting than I thought we were. Maybe the thought of sitting up and doing, this strange form of couples counseling in front of a ballroom just never was that appealing to it. But I'm happy to be here because it's all the things that we talk about and challenge each other on. When I step back and look at it from this viewpoint this morning, I don't think either of us would be here without the other.
Right. Agreed.
But it's fun to be able to say that in person in front of so many friends in this room.
Michael, anything to add to that?
No, that was a perfect answer. Leave it alone.
Super wise man right there. So one of the things that's also interesting to me about your paths is, Michael, you have this reputation as an entrepreneur and an investor around innovation. How your credibility and roots in the not-for-profit community here are really deep, and yet you each had stints on the other side. Michael, you founded the Entrepreneur Center and ran it for 5 years. Hal, you started a software business that you got to the point where you sold. So can you talk a little bit about how that has given you an appreciation for what the other one goes through, and also why you are in the lane that you're in now?
Yeah. Well, I got terribly out of my lane trying to start the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, but it was a passion project because when I left HCA and started raising money, I found it impossible to do that here at the time in the very early 90s. I was either too young, you've never done it before, I wasn't from the right family, and it was hard to find advisors. So I had promised myself after I sold my second company and I had some time that I would do it. But boy, did I ever learn how hard it is to run a nonprofit, because I was used to being in charge. And if there's anything you are not running a nonprofit, it is in charge.
Flip the rock over in the same. I feel like I can run a nonprofit with my eyes shut. But running a not-for-profit and running a business, they're two different sports.
Right.
You got to be in shape, but you're playing two different games entirely. And so it's one of the things that always kind of has bothered me when I hear business people say nonprofits need to act more like businesses, and I'm just going to step in there because that's not the case.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And I think what I've learned, nonprofits need more than presence has to precede strategy in a nonprofit, and until they know that you care, and until you've built that trust, you're not going to go anywhere together. It's different.
It's very different.
A business strategy first.
We start with strategy, then build the team, then go solve a problem. Then the nonprofit, you actually observe the problem.
Yeah.
You already have the people. You've got to build awareness and presence before you build a strategy around the people.
But yeah, it wasn't my sport. And I did it, and I had raised a lot of money from friends and family. I was not going to lose that money. I was not going to let them down. So I flew that plane, I landed it, and we all exited safely, but I'm check. I've done that. Not doing that anymore.
Yeah. And I've stayed involved with the Entrepreneur Center. I'm currently on the board. I love it. But it was 5 years of 12-hour days, 6 days a week, grinding it out, trying to get people to notice that this was a city that if we built the entrepreneurial small business community, we could build Nashville. And now it resonates, but in 2010, it wasn't kind of top of mind.
Right. So you guys have been married for 10 years, together for 15.
Yeah.
How does this happen over the dinner table? Like, you understand a little bit of what the other person is going through, but you're like, okay, I run the business, I run the not-for-profit. Is there a lot of advice going on? Do you like, hey, we need to, the table is Switzerland. We can't get into this because we like to stay married. How does that show up?
You want to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, yeah.
What the hell?
This is so weird, y'all.
That's 100%
And I do want to point
it.
out, Michael has a rollerboard and an airplane ticket. Immediately after this breakfast, he's getting in a car and going. So we'll see if he comes back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I live in the sky 2 or 3 days a week. I think how this plays out at home is Sunday night. For us, Sunday night is pretty sacred. It takes a lot to take advantage of any invitation. We sit down to dinner, we plan the next week or two, because he needs to know where the heck I'm going to be, and I need to know where he's going to be, because even though most of my work is traveling, on any given night, he may have 1 or 2 events associated with the center. Right. And when we are talking, I've learned, after 15 years, to understand Hal isn't always looking for advice, which I'm quick to give sometimes. Sometimes he just needs me to listen. And so I've learned that, before I get into my advice-giving mode, it's, are you wanting me to listen, or are you wanting an opinion? And quite often he doesn't really need another opinion. He's got plenty of those circling around him every day.
Right.
No, sometimes I think of us as 2 geese, flying in different directions a lot of times, but I know the wing beat.
Yeah.
I know when he's tired. I know when I need to get out and cut the headwind first and let him kind of exhale, and vice versa. So it's a nice dance.
And I think the most important thing is, no matter what your work is, are you there for the other person? I mean, I went through a horrible medical scare in 23, almost died from sepsis, and nothing was more important to Hal than making sure I was okay. Yeah. I got to be with his family and his father, to have his father have a good death after a stage 4 cancer situation. So I think the moments that test you, even when I lost my son, his entire family showed up. Yeah. I think when you have lived through those kinds of things together, working out what we need to work on Sunday night's pretty easy.
Yeah, great answer. And I 100% wanted you up here in part because it's weird. So I appreciate you going along with that. So I really do. Let's maybe switch back a little bit to the business side of things and the purpose. That's why we're here. Purpose side of things. Yeah. Michael, you've got this entrepreneurial thread. You're super committed to the city over the last 30 plus years, maybe longer now. Yeah. When you talk about purpose, what does that look like for you in the work that you're doing now here in Nashville?
So I view entrepreneurship as the great liberator of anyone. And it's not for everyone, but if you grew up disadvantaged in any way, I grew up on a dirt farm in Mississippi with my grandmother. Entrepreneurship was a ticket for me out of poverty and to have opportunity. And I see so many young men and women who have a dream, and before that dream gets squashed out by corporate America or situations, I see this opportunity to help them see can they make that dream come true. And not everyone can, but most entrepreneurship starts with a passion of wanting to do something that makes a difference. And so for me, purpose is taking the time, hear them out, give them good guidance, and show them what that path looks like, and then they can choose if they want to do that or not. And I remind myself every morning that that's why I'm here.
Yeah, right. Al, what about for you? Because you have been serving the not-for-profit world and the people in this community for a long time. You grew up here. Mm-hmm. How does that keep showing up for you?
You know, I'm a big North Star person. And I think that North Star keeps pointing us back to our true calling and our true vocation in life. And I can, you know, speaking of growing up here, I can distinctly remember in the 4th grade going on a field trip at Christmas time. We were all supposed to bake cupcakes and all those things and go down to a senior citizens home. We were going to sing and play games and share the goodies and all of that. And I can remember doing that, and we got there, and of course the senior that I had been assigned to, we each had a buddy, was a diabetic and couldn't eat anything that I had brought. And I remember thinking, I got nothing to offer her. But she was so glad that I was there, and the presence and sitting there, and made me realize that my presence was the gift. The cupcakes didn't matter. And you know, it's crazy. You know, that was in 1975, and here we are, 2026, and I'm still talking about it because that was the moment that spark, I think, was lit. And grew up, you know, kind of, you know, the first one bullied and the last one picked. That stays with you. And so I still, you know, I'll go into a room and I'm going to be drawn to the folks on the margins. It's just where I need to show up. Yeah. And every time I stay true to that, something really pings. If I get away from that, it starts to get cold. So Oasis Center to Thistle Farms to the Community Foundation, it's like, you know, it's like 3 different ropes course, each one increasingly difficult, you know, but that's just, I know my purpose. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm really grateful to be able to say that at this age.
Yeah. Hal, here's Hal's persona. Did you all see the Christmas show where the little dentist and the Island of Misfit Toys?
Yeah.
Hal is the dentist, Hermie. And he leads the Misfit Toys against the big old bad abominable snowman, and that's his world he lives in. He just collects misfit toys and creates purpose with it.
I love that. That's a great example. Hal, you've mentioned a word twice in pretty different contexts that I want to follow up on. That is presence. About the not-for-profit's got to have some presence to be effective. But then you talk about it with a really personal example of your presence is what she values. Can you talk a little bit more about what presence means and how you can cultivate that, be conscious about that?
Sure. I mean, it's, you know, I learned the importance of presence. So I started Oasis Center. My first year, I was failing because I came into it with this mindset. So many things needed to be fixed. Literally, the roof was leaking. It was just, there was no money for payroll at one point. And so I came in just sort of hard charging, you know, we have to turn all this around, fix this, fix it. They didn't know me yet. And so it wasn't resonating. They didn't trust me. And I remember a 15-year-old girl, you know, who I just talked to a little while ago. We're still very close. Told me one time in my office, she said, "You look like you're really stressed out." And I just said, I know I'm sucking at this job right now. And I told her why. And she said, you know, my teacher said, don't forget, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. Right. And it just like, and I've never forgotten that. So presence to me, you take time. And when I went to Thistle Farms, similar thing, literally, they handed me an org chart in the shape of a flower, and I wanted to immediately start fixing it, but I knew if I tried to start fixing it, it wasn't going to work. So it was 11 months of learning how to pour candles and mowing grass and sitting in circle and all those things so they you know, that presence, so they could trust me. And once they trust you, they've handed you a glass ball, literally, that you cannot break in this sector. Then the second thing is just, you can't, presence and proximity go hand in glove. So understanding the problem by getting close to the problem, by building deep relationships with those who know more about the problem than I ever will. I couldn't have survived 3 days of the childhood of some of the women that I served, but I got close enough where I understood them, and I was also able to understand where they wanted to go, and that trust was there.
So I have a different question, and I shared a bunch of questions with them in advance, and already we're not paying attention to that, so I hope they'll go with this.
Doesn't matter.
So, but something that just occurred to me that you both have dealt with in different ways. Michael, you've been a founder, you've sold businesses, you've probably brought companies in that you founded. Hal, you started some organizations, then you came in as the CEO of Thistle Farms with Becca, who was here last year at this event. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the founder and the CEO who comes next? And what do you have to know about that and yourself and the organization?
Yeah. So founders start their business from a point of passion, and often their whole mission statement or anything they write is about what they cared about. And it gets you from 0 to 1. It gets you off the ground, and it's actually what gives you energy on the days you have no energy. When you become a CEO, you have to realize that you have to translate that personal mission into one that everyone on your team feels like they have a sense of belonging, that their work matters, and they're building something bigger than themselves. And often that isn't your passion of why you started something. It has to become a collective, our passion. Particularly if you're buying someone else's business, they were also a founder, and they had their own mission. And so I think it's really important when you make the transition from founder to CEO, you're no longer the person everyone's necessarily just following down a path and blindly trusting. If you want to get the best discretionary effort, and that's the effort people give you beyond the job description, they have to feel like they matter, their work matters, and they're building to something bigger than themselves. And that's the real job of a CEO. If you get that right, you'll have no trouble having a great business.
Yeah. Now, what about for you being on the other side of that as well as coming in as the CEO at Thistle Farms?
Yeah, I mean, I came in following CEOs at Oasis Center, Thistle Farms, and Community Foundation.
Yeah.
Thistle Farms and Community Foundation following founders, which is a whole different conversation. And I love what Michael said. I mean, I think there's a lot of similarity and crossover. Again, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. So you have to come in and really understand the culture, understand what makes people tick, tap into what do they see as right and wrong, what is their hopes and dreams for their own career, but also for the organization. Deeply understand that before you start tinkering with anything. Also, looking at the external relationships and the partnerships. I've got a mantra that I tell nonprofit leaders all the time, do what you do best and partner for the rest. So who are you partnering with that's going to make you look bigger than you are, and it's going to help the people that you're serving in ways that you can't. So those relationships internally and externally, are precious. And again, it is slow and steady. If you go in like a bull in a china shop, it's not going to work.
I have a guy I used to work for. He had a great saying about a bull in a china shop. It depends if it's your bull or your china shop, right? It really matters.
That's true.
That perspective.
Good point.
Yeah.
So I sort of joked when we started that this view out the window here is pretty spectacular. You growing up, when you came here in the 80s, it didn't look like this.
Not at all.
So we've got this amazing story. Hal, you thought about running for mayor. Michael, you've been involved in lots of rooms where decisions get made in this city. Yeah. What are the things that you're still worried about here in Nashville? And I know you have different lenses on that, but just keep it to 3.
I'll start because he will give you a sermon, and I'll keep mine to a soundbite. I want everyone to have a seat at the table. I think the table's big enough for everyone. It bothers me when individuals are marginalized because of who they are, the color of their skin, who they love. It just bothers me because our country's bigger than that, and our city is bigger than that. This is a melting pot of humanity in Nashville. I mean, I think what makes Nashville great is we have about 100 people a day moving here from all over the world. and they're bringing lots of ideas that if we just have the character to stop and not live in an echo chamber and listen and have civil conversations, we can be an example city for the whole world. But we have to intentionally do that. And so my hope and aspiration for our city is that we continue things that the songwriters that first arrived here when country music was created here were doing, and that is they get together and write music together. Well, let's get together and write Nashville's story together. I think that is a perfect metaphor for Music City.
Bravo.
Damn, that was good.
Sorry, Hal. You're up next.
I have my moments sometimes.
Yeah. You know, I mean, Nashville has always been a city of possibility.
Yeah.
And people who come here, whether it's to learn and go to college, start a business, to write a hit song, to whatever, you know, it's been a city of possibility. But and it still is, but it's getting harder and harder and harder. And I don't want to live in a city, you know, you've got two classes of people. And I increasingly see that growing,
Right.
where those who are living their best life and can't wait for the next restaurant opening, and those who don't know how they're going to fill their car up with gas so they can get to that restaurant and serve the person. That's not the city that we want.
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking over at my friend Stephanie Coleman, and so grateful for the partnership that the Chamber and Community Foundation are developing, because to get to Michael's thing, it's a songwriting team.
Yeah.
No one of us can close the gap that Nashville needs to close if we are going to continue to be a great city. It's going to take all of us. And I feel like this job that I have so many days, I'm up on top of the press box. And over here I see more than 1,200 nonprofits. I see 35 plus issue-based coalitions. I see hundreds of millions of dollars in philanthropic capital. And then over here I see, you know, homeless is up 26% in a year. Half the population makes less than a living wage. 82% of Nashvillians say I can't afford a home here anymore. Why such a disconnect? And it's like we don't have a caring problem or a resource problem. We have a coordination problem. And so that's really where I see leaning in, and it's going to take philanthropy and business and government to sort of, you know, open the kimono a bit and like talk about where we're each struggling. And that's hard. Leaders don't like oftentimes to talk about what they're not good at and to share power and to say, I need help, but we have got to get there.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly.
Good job.
Well said. So to flip that question a little bit and staying in Nashville, what are the things that give you hope about the things that you're worried about? What's the other side that you feel like we're doing some of the right things, that you see it happening, the people, the partnerships, the songwriting group is coming together? Are there things that you're like, we need more of that, and you see it happening?
Yeah, I mean, what gives me hope about Nashville, what gives me hope is our continuing, the way we continue to honor and lift up diversity in this town. And, you know, no matter the noise that comes in that says you can't talk about that, or we do, and we take care of one another, and we look out for one another and make sure that it is a city where people belong. We did a survey about 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, called Imagine Nashville. More than 10,000 people spoke into this survey, so there was not an inconsequential number. And the researchers who were doing this work for us were out of DC, and they've done this kind of survey all over the country, and they're like, oh my gosh, Nashville has the highest belonging score we've ever seen of any city or state anywhere. 78% of people who filled that survey out said, I feel like I belong in Nashville. Mm-hmm. For example, the group that had the highest sense of belonging in that was our immigrant community. So there's some real pockets of desire and longing to belong, and I think we honor that, and people are recognizing that's a precious thing that we have to tend. I think cities are built, communities are tended, and we are recognizing that if we don't tend this community, we're going to lose it.
Yeah.
So true. My hope is framed around this. I love the spirit of when there's trouble, we show up. I mean, one of Hal's other nonprofits he started was Hands on Nashville. During the 2010 flood, during every tornado and every disaster, we show up to help each other. And we set aside all of our differences, and you're my neighbor, I'm going to help you. And that's, to me, the most hopeful part of our spirit is let's keep showing up. Let's just don't wait for the next disaster.
Yeah.
Let's deal with what we have today. Rather than being disaster focused, let's be one another focused.
Yeah, I love that. Well said. 2 more questions, given where we are in the time. Megan mentioned I'd written 2 books. One of them is called Tailspin to Tailwind. And I love this idea that out of those tough times come lessons. Michael, I know that's part of your work. Hal, that's by definition part of your work. Can you guys maybe just one example of a time when you thought like it wasn't going to work, it wasn't going to turn around, and how it did and what you learned from that? Could be Entrepreneur Center, it could be business, it could be some of the work that you've done, Hal.
Yeah. You want to start?
Oh gosh, there's
which one do I pick?
Yeah,
I was going to see if
know.
you'd go
I'm playing
first. So I could,
the loop
in my head, eliminate
in my head.
10,000 and pick one. I'll give you a couple. So I founded the Entrepreneur Center. I was mostly funding that out of my pocket because I hadn't done yet enough for people to believe in. And people love to back a winner,
Right.
but nobody wants to back another startup, particularly another startup nonprofit. So I was down to about 2 months of cash. We were in a bad pickle because I just about maxed out my credit card. And I was in the middle of trying to help this startup and then get on the phone and try to raise some money. And I had 2 or 3 young men and a couple of young women helping me out, thank goodness. And I get this certified letter in the mail from this magazine that had our name in it. I can't name them legally, but you can figure out who it is. With a cease and desist and a lawsuit because we had the word entrepreneur in our name. It cost me $200,000 to get that lawsuit to go away when I was trying to make the next 90 days work. That was probably my single lowest moment at the center because it's like, I can't even get local attention, and now I got a national player wanting to sue me because I've got the word entrepreneur in my name. And it was just devastating. I started cold calling Steve Case because I was desperate. After 14 voice messages, he called me. He's like, you're not going to stop calling her. And Steve, you just got to hear me out. This is what's going on. If you would show up, and Steve had founded AOL, he was well known, and I said, if you would show up, you would give so much credibility to what I'm trying to do. He flew his plane down, spent the day with me and the governor and the mayor. He invited Mary Grove, who ran Google for Entrepreneurs, to show up. Mary heard the story. She got Google to write a check for $1 million, and we turned the center around.
Wow. Amazing. What a story. Yeah.
But it's called Your Back's to the Wall. You better do something.
Stalker is such an ugly word. 14 messages is just persistence and good salesmanship. We're not going to go there.
Yeah, again, I should have gone first.
I offered.
I don't have billionaires and planes flying in to save my
didn't either,
nonprofit.
yeah.
I wish I had. Boy, it would have been easier some days. I think a big lesson for me, and I think it's been a lesson for a lot of nonprofits since then. It was kind of accidental. It was 2007, and Oasis Center was just in bad shape, and our building was literally the only thing holding it together. I think were the termites holding each other's hands. If they had let go, that building would have been a goner. And I knew we needed new space. The largest gift Oasis Center had ever gotten in its history was $100,000. So like we've got to do a capital campaign. And so went out there and started doing the feasibility study, and it wasn't great, but I plowed into it anyway. And then, you know what happened in 2008?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was fun. But at the same time, I knew Roger Dinwiddie over at Stars Nashville was thinking the same thing. And I was like, what if we joined hands? But not just us. You know, we know that, stats showed 82% of the time when you referred a young person to another service at an organization, they didn't follow through. It didn't make. So what if instead of trying to send young people out to the mountains, we brought the mountains to one place? And we came together, and 5 of us launched a joint capital campaign, which had never happened at the time. And in 7 months, at the height of the worst recession since the Great Depression, we raised $7 million and got that building done. And so I drive by it still, and I love, Conexion and Casa Azafran and so many others have kind of been able to take that playbook. And it's, again, what happens when we come together to do what no one individual can do on their own.
Yeah.
Magic happens.
Yeah.
So true.
That's it. And you put it into practice. There's lots of talk about we should partner more, but then kind of nobody really wants to do it. And you did. That's an amazing example of the walk and the talk. So the last question's back into weird for sure. Would like each of you to say what you think the other person's professional blind spot is, and how often are you right? And this is where Michael in the rollerboard bag is ready to go.
Suitcase out. Get the suitcase out.
I'm going to run to the airport as soon as I say this one. So Hal lives in a world full of possibilities. He always sees the glass half full. He believes the good in everyone when I'm thinking, I don't know about them. But he will find some kernel of goodness in just about everybody, and he believes people want to work together for a common good. Sometimes that can be a blind side because there are people who have agendas who actually don't want to do that. And so that happens sometimes, but I'll take him as he is any day over someone who's a pessimist.
There you go. Right.
Yeah. That's one of those, like in the interviews, it's like, what's your greatest weakness? I care too much, those things.
No, I didn't say you care too much. I said you live in this imaginary world where everybody wants to get things along.
Now we're getting there. Excellent.
So Michael loves his work so much. I mean, he literally said this to me a couple of weeks ago. I don't even want to go to sleep. I want to keep working. I hate to have to go to sleep. That's kind of a high bar, and when you set that bar for other people and you expect those around you to hold that same standard, it's not fair. I'm like, okay. I mean, he'll start railing on something. I'm like, all right, Judge Judy, tap the brakes. Not everybody wants to work throughout the night because it brings them so much joy.
Right.
So I think his expecting others to always be at his same performance is a challenge.
Well, I will say, because of your commitment and your high bar that you have for each other in this community, Nashville's a better city for the two of you being here. Thanks for taking some time to share.
Thank you, buddy. We enjoy being with you. Thank you.
You got to go. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us on the Repurpose Podcast with me, Buddy Teaster. You can follow this show at buddyteaster.com/podcast, and you can learn more about what we do at s4s.org. If you like this content, please share, rate, and review our episodes wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And until next time, I ask you to ask yourself, what's your why? And how will discovering that help give your life a repurpose?